You know that feeling, right? You write some code, it works perfectly on your computer, and then the second it gets to a real user, it just crashes and burns. Ugh, it is one of the most frustrating things in development. Well, today, we're going to pull back the curtain and find the hidden reason this keeps happening. And I promise you, it's probably not what you think. Oh, yes, the classic. The phrase every developer has said and every developer has heard. It's basically code for there's a massive gap between what I thought would happen and what's actually happening. This little phrase, it's the key to this whole mystery. Okay, let's just dive right in. Our mission here is to understand that gap, the one between the code that looks perfect in development and that exact same code failing spectacularly out in the real world. We're going to close that gap today. Now, it's really easy to think that a bug is just, a typo, a misplaced semicolon, a variable name spelled wrong. But let's be honest, our tools these days catch almost all of that stuff instantly. The really nasty bugs, the ones that are totally unpredictable, they come from somewhere else, somewhere much deeper. So, if it's not a simple coding mistake, then what in the world is it? What's this invisible force that's making our perfectly good code just fall apart? And here it is. The real culprit is something we all do every single time we write code. We make assumptions, hidden ones, unstated ones, and a lot of the time, we don't even realize we're doing it. So, what even is a hidden assumption? Well, think of it as any belief you have in your head that you never actually state out loud. To the computer, you believe a user object will be there. You believe a network request will succeed. But the computer, it doesn't know about your beliefs. It has zero guarantees. It only knows the exact instructions you give it. And this is why they're so tricky. Assumptions are dangerous because they give you this false sense of security. Of course your code works during testing. In your perfect, controlled little world, all your assumptions are true. The failure only rears its ugly head later, under some specific, messy, real-world condition that you never planned for. All right, so where are these little gremlins hiding in our code? Let's go on a hunt and look at a really concrete example. Take a look at this. A simple one-line JavaScript function. All it does is take a user object and return their name in all caps. Seems totally harmless, right? I mean, come on, you've probably written code that looks almost exactly like this 100 times. I mean, seriously, look at it. What could possibly go wrong here? It's just one line. But believe it or not, this one little line of code is an absolute minefield of hidden assumptions. And here they are. In this one line, we assumed 4 different things were true. First, that the user even exists and isn't null. If it is, crash. Second, that user is an object. What if it's a number? Crash. Third, that the user object actually has a property on it called name. If not, crash. And fourth, that the name property is a string, so that uppercase method will work. If it's a number, well, you get the idea. It crashes. And this is the key. If that function fails, the bug isn't a typo. The syntax is perfect. The bug is that one of our quiet, unstated assumptions about the world just turned out to be false. And this problem isn't just in simple functions. It is everywhere. We assume users will give us a valid email. We assume our async code will finish in the order we expect. We assume that third-party API we rely on is always going to be online and send us perfect data. And not a single one of those things is ever guaranteed. So, how do we fix this? Well, it's not about learning some new fancy framework. It's about a fundamental shift in how you think when you sit down to write code. Just look at this comparison. A beginner writes code with this hopeful optimism, right? This should work. But a professional immediately looks at their own code with a critical eye and asks, okay, how can this break? What can go wrong here? This is the internal monologue that's constantly running in an experienced developer's head. They are always actively probing their own logic for weak spots. They don't just write the code, they challenge it. They ask all these questions before that code ever even thinks about leaving their machine. All right, so that's the mindset. But what are the actual practical steps we can take to start kicking these assumptions out of our work? Let's get into the how-to. Here you go. This is your 6-step checklist for writing rock-solid code. Think of it as your defensive playbook. You validate everything coming in. Trust nothing. You explicitly check for missing values instead of just hoping they're there. You use default values as a safety net. You plan for errors to happen. You don't just assume an API call worked, you actually check the response. This is how you build software that doesn't fall over.
Ultimately, it really just comes down to this choice. You can write optimistic code, which is fast and works great, until it doesn't, or you can write defensive code, which assumes failure isn't just possible, but that it's inevitable, and it prepares for it. And I want to leave you with this idea because it really says it all in one sentence. Being a great developer isn't about writing more code or more clever code. It's about being the most diligent at finding and eliminating your own blind spots, your own assumptions. So the next time you finish writing something and it works perfectly on your machine, I want you to just pause for a second and ask yourself this one question. Because our job isn't just to write code that works when everything goes right. It's to write code that still works when things go wrong. Go find your assumptions before your users do.